Welcome to Dead Time with your host, Holly Faust. Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Dead Time Tales. Tonight we have with us Matt Reeder. He's a lifelong seeker of the strange, a follower of his intuition, and an intuitive seer who helps others discover their hidden witch powers with a unique ability to discern auras around certain individuals and identify innate gifts. Now, Matt shares his journey and his calling to empower people to embrace their inner witchy gifts through his pendulum readings. He guides both men and women to uncover their special talents and encourages them to break free from societal norms to fully own their abilities. Matt, thank you so much for coming on. Also, guys, here's what's really interesting. He's probably like an hour up the interstate for me, which we did not know until today.
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Holly. It's very nice to be here.
Yeah, and I'm very intrigued, because yeah, I'm a witch myself. I'm not a religious witch because I'm a minister besides being a witch. But I like how you talk about, helping others discover their hidden witch powers.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about that for us?
Sure. Um, well, I started using a pendulum a few years ago, maybe yeah, about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's just been like a learning journey. Like you know, I ask questions and I get answers, and I follow where those answers take me, and um, eventually it brought me to this website where I can print out dowsing boards, that have basically anything you can ask it on it. And this one had witch powers. So, I asked it my witch powers one night, and I got a list of different witch powers that I have, available to me. And then I did my girlfriend the next night, and we have her list of witch powers. And I'm like, well, wait, can I do this on random people who I don't even know? And it's just one thing's led to another, and so that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years of my life. Is just sharing with people as I go, um, which powers they have access to.
That's pretty cool because, like, I had never heard of that before until we were, talking. Because 'cause I'm an intuitive, I'm a medium. I do all that kind of stuff, and, being a paranormal investigator, tend to investigate on the psychic side, so I do use a pendulum, but I just didn't know, like, this whole wide world of other things the pendulum could be used for.
Right? It's crazy. I mean, my grandma's generation, they probably only ever used a pendulum for finding water or asking, if it's going to rain or something, and they probably really only use yes or no questions. But
Yep.
I have a board that has an alphabet on it. You see it all right?
Oh,
But it's
yeah,
got
that it's almost like a pendulum style Ouija board.
exactly. I mean, it's got letters that go all the way around it and numbers, and um, so that gives the pendulum, whoever the spirit is on the pendulum, the ability to really communicate wholly different ways with me. And this is available to anybody who can use a pendulum. But yeah, so once you start asking questions and getting answers, then it's kind of like a whole new universe opens up to me. And then once I found out that I had access to like cheat codes for this life, and then I could also see other people who have access to witch powers or cheat codes. I decided I'd start sharing with them, what I can see. And, it's been really crazy, but I say it's crazy, but not crazy all the time.
Yeah, I mean, when I've always been of the belief that we all have, whether it's psychic gifts or some type of powers that are bestowed upon us at birth. And I think
Right,
some people choose to use them where other people are just more apt to not really pay attention and believe in them.
right. Well, and that's because society kind of tamps down a witch's powers as they're growing,
Right.
and it's only really the more powerful people that can't deny that it's them hearing their grandma have conversations with them or whatever. So they grow up just accepting the fact that they can talk to dead people, and then they're professional mediums as they get older or whatever, or tarot readers, or there's a lot of professional witches that just couldn't pass it off as the universe looking out for them, or boy, that was a really lucky thing that happened to me. It wasn't them, manifesting something or whatever. So, I think society itself is set up to keep the witches not learning about their gifts or their talents. And, I'm always been a nonconformist, so, I'm all about bucking society at any chance I get. So,
Oh,
I
yeah,
guess.
I agree with that. I think most of us that are involved in the witchcraft movement, I know down we have a group on Facebook. It's Witches of Pennsylvania, Witches of PA. And we have like over 13,000 members throughout the state of PA on the group. And what's really cool is that through all of this, there's a girl down in Hanover that actually opened a shop and was getting harassed by the local police for
I
reading
saw that
tarot.
on the
Yeah,
news. Yes.
Beck, they are actually, a member of our group, and they come on at least our business page a lot. I actually encountered Beck the first time when I met them on TikTok.
Mm,
They did a lot. They on TikTok they go by the Stitching Witch, and they were doing a lot to really put education out there for younger witches because their aspect of witch talk had gotten very toxic at that point, and the education aspect of it was long forgotten, and people were just making crap up as they went, and they still do, except there are those of us out there that are always there to say like, oh hey, no.
absolutely.
Stop hexing the fairies, stop hexing the moon. That stuff is not good for you. You want to hex the right people. And
Right.
so but yeah, Beck, they share a lot of their story about, what they actually are going to court to fight for our right in PA to be able to read tarot and to be able to do divination of all sorts, because right now, according to the letter of the law, it's illegal. And
Right.
like, I know I have to put a disclaimer on all of my stuff that says for entertainment purposes only. Even
Right.
like stuff I sell, like, ritual supplies and stuff like that, I have to put entertainment. It's religion to some people. So a ritual to me is no different than going into the Catholic Church and going through a mass. It's the same
Right.
thing. It's just a different type of ritual.
Right.
And so yeah, I just find I love that we're starting to come out and talk more.
Well, that's the only way any of us are going to learn about the gifts that we have is by, me talking to one person and then me saying, "Oh, well, I got this other person and they have the same one, and maybe you guys can learn from each other." And then, it just kind of snowballs from there. And I know what you're saying about the entertainment thing. I actually have a new business that I'm starting. It's a rent-a-witch. It's basically Pocono rent-a-witch business where
Right.
I'll show up.
I'll write some spells for you for 15.99. No.
No, no, we we had our first event last August, I guess, and I showed up with an angel card reader, a tarot reader, and a medium who uses a pendulum, and we went to this Mardi Gras event, and you know, we did like 62 readings in like 3 hours. So,
Yeah,
you know,
basically that's what I spend my summer doing.
yeah,
I'm an
that's just
author.
like that.
I write books, but besides that, I do mediumship readings, I do aura cleanses, I do aura readings, I do Reiki. But
Mm,
when I do events, I haven't gotten a table yet, so I do like I call it a dumbed down version of Reiki in a chair. But it's still, cleansing a good portion of the chakras. And, but then I also sell body products that I make here at home, organic handmade products. I was actually out in the garden outside our shop today and I seen purple nettle growing. So I started yelling, I gotta go collect that to make some salve. And my husband's like, oh, here we go. It's spring.
as witches do.
Right. And, like in that unique aspect is that, I spent the majority of my life following a Celtic druidic type of life from my grandparents, but as an older teen and young adult, I started embracing the indigenous side from my mom.
Mhm.
But now I've learned there's this whole world called Appalachian folklore magic that is a combination of the Scotch Irish and the indigenous melded together. So I've been studying Appalachian magic. So that's
But
like my new little thing.
it's interesting you say that. My grandma, who I think is probably the the most influential witch in my life, um, she's from Appalachia. She was like born and raised in some Houdah Hall or something like that. And, you know,
Well, technically here in PA, we're in the upper echelons of Appalachia.
oh yeah, yeah, because the Appalachian Mountains are up
Yep,
through here.
because where I grew up in the coal region, like I'm in the Scranton Wilkes-Barre area, and that was always considered the valley of the Appalachians. So I was like my big joke. I had a couple girls that call them that are the Appalachian Ghost Girls, and my big joke is like, they're from the I can't remember how they coined it, but like the Riviera or something like that of Appalachia. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm from the valley, and we're the good type of valley girls.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
you also, do a lot with auras. Now, are you the type of person that gets intuitive feelings? Do you see colors? Do you see like cuz I know
Yeah.
myself, I sometimes see colors, but it's more words that come to me.
Okay. So like the words describe the person that you're seeing.
The
The
words describe the aura, you know.
well, when I was in my 20s, um, I would always feel things about people, and I don't think I actually would see anything until maybe my late 20s or early 30s. And then I could look at a group of 10 women, and two of them would have like a light around them or whatever, you know. And I think that's kind of the general math that seems to fit, pretty much any room I go into. If there's 10 women, two of them will be witches, or what I guess have come to find out is witches. Like I basically see colors around women who have gifts. So um, I guess that's the only way I can really describe it. I don't see colors around guys who say they're witches. You know that they all look like dudes to me. I guess I don't know. Um, but women that have gifts, I can see a visible aura around them in pictures
That's
or
pretty interesting. Cuz I know with me I see it around everybody.
right.
Whether it's words that come to me or but I have to tune in because like you were saying, like I had gifts from a very young childhood. However, my gifts were stifled because I had family that was very set in their Christian beliefs and they thought I was the devil. And
Right. That's
so
true.
I stifled it until I got older and started understanding, wait, there's something to this. There I have something going on.
Yeah,
Um
you can't ignore it
and
anymore because things are
right.
happening. You
And
can't
I had a
explain.
mental break, which
Well, most of us do.
yeah, and that's when I really learned, about the abilities that I wasn't using. And I met, thankfully, I was able to encounter a few people that helped guide me along the way. But first, it started out with me just being able to be empathetic, and have that empathy type of, readings and ability to see things as an empath. But then it slowly like just started ballooning out as I started embracing things and those abilities became, precognitive. Then I got, yeah, at a haunted location, I got jumped and I had
My
a spirit speaking through me.
mm,
And it was the scariest because I don't remember anything that happened. And when I listen back to the recording, it doesn't even sound like me.
oh, they changed the voice and everything. Like
Yep, I sounded
yeah,
like Gollum from Lord of the Rings.
yeah. I've seen that happen. I mean, I've heard of it happening. You know, I don't think I've ever witnessed it in person because I'm not usually doing investigations for paranormal
Right.
places. I mean, I tend to keep my witchcraft in the living room or whatever.
I take it everywhere, man, no
Well,
matter where I go. So you're
well, probably 'cause-
also excuse me?
I was gonna say probably because dead people talk to you wherever. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
and
Like,
that's always the thing, like, the big joke when I first had, committed myself to try to figure out what's going wrong, we were sitting
because you had
in
voices in your head, right? So you thought you
right,
had
all
prayed.
the time, I heard voices, and we're sitting in group therapy, and somebody said, "Well, why are you here?" And I said, "Well, did you ever see the movie The Sixth Sense?" And they're like, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Well, remember how he saw dead people? Well, I hear them."
Hmm.
and that person did not sit next to me the rest of his stay in the psych ward. But like I spent a good month or two in and out, and then I thought things were getting better because at first, of course, they diagnosed me with paranoid schizophrenia.
And they put you on medication too to
That
calm.
didn't work. I still
Right,
heard the voices, and not only that, all I did was sleep. So it was knocking me out because I didn't need it.
right,
And then it was about maybe a year or two later, I had my third child, and things started really ramping up again. And I was unable to push it away. And I
mm,
ended back up in the hospital, and for the same reasons, and of course, again, they could not figure out what was wrong with me. And then finally, it was when my son started having his own psychic experiences was what I realized, "Oh my god, that's me. That's what's going on with me." So,
right.
like, he found his gifts at the same time that I was mine were emerging, so
Well, but you weren't tamping his down with the church. You know, you weren't shoving a Bible into his hands every time
no,
he said he thought he heard a voice from grandma or whatever.
he tampered his down on his own because he didn't like it. He totally
Well,
locked his up and threw away the key.
and does he use it to this day, or does he still
No.
not use them?
No, he was very precognate. So he was actually seeing destruction. Like he saw, and yeah, I would write these things down. He saw the death of my husband's uncle
Hmm.
months before it happened. He was foreseeing some other like tragic things that were going on. And then the one that really did him in was that he saw like a massive earthquake occur somewhere in the Mariana Trench. I think that's how you say it, but out that way, and the destruction and the death, and that was it for him. He After he saw that, he was done. Because he had a vision of basically most of California being gone.
Right.
And it hasn't happened yet. Could it have been a false vision? We don't know. But if it does happen, I'll be like, well, that's how far he was able to see into the
Right.
future, you know? But yeah,
Right.
after that, he was so young and to be experiencing stuff at such a level, and I was still not adept to help him cope. Like, we did as much as we could,
Because
to
you don't
help
know
quell
by
the
yourself. You don't
spirits.
know. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but other than that, we couldn't help him quell the precognition.
Well, like, wouldn't you? Don't you wish you would have known you weren't crazy and that you didn't need to be medicated? That all you needed to do was talk to the people that were talking to you. You
I
know what I mean?
really wish I would have known that. Well, I did talk to them anyhow. I didn't care.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but you weren't admitting that you were a medium. You literally thought you were nuts. So,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know, I
that
mean,
was, like, a huge weight off my back,
right,
when I can turn around and say, "Yes, I have these abilities, and yes, I see dead people all the time." Like,
right.
I built an altar in my room using, Apache tears, and, for the ancestors, me not thinking the worst place to build an altar for your ancestors is your bedroom. And because I was having so many things coming through, like, I'd be laying there at night, and this man was standing over me whistling Dixie. He didn't belong to me.
Right. He was just
So I'm putting out a search online, like, who does this guy belong to? This is what he looks like. This is what he's doing, and
but
to try to find who he owned.
he could see that he could communicate with you, so he was trying to communicate.
Oh yeah.
But that's the purple light. You're a purple lighter. I mean, I don't know if you want me to share that with everybody.
Oh no, that's
Um,
I don't care. I'm fascinated by it all.
yeah, well, purple lighters are, and everything that I'm saying right now is just me basing all my anecdotal evidence that I've accumulated over the last few years of my life, um, talking to the people about what auras they have. So purple lighters are always the mystics. They're the ones connected to either spirit guides or angels or dead people like mediums. And so I feel like you guys get your fuel for your gifts through human emotions. So human energy or whatever. So like
Mhm.
you guys are the super empaths of the witchy world. The purple lighters are. The sunny yellow empaths are out there using human emotions to spread sunshine everywhere they go. You know people that you can say like, damn, they're always happy, they're always they're always sunny, and they always walk into work whistling or whatever, and they always make you feel good about themselves. Well, they're most likely yellow empath witches. I see them as yellow. Maybe other people do too, but they're using human emotions to create the sunlight that they can spread with people. Red and orange witches are out there spreading fire, like the yellow empaths are spreading sunshine. They're spreading fire. They're the dragon ladies. They're the
See,
ball busters.
I
You
feel
know.
like that sometimes because, like, I always tell people I'm a hex as soon as look at you, witch.
Well,
You do something to harm me or people I care about, and you're gonna see my talons come out.
that's the true with no matter what color witch you are. But then you have like the green witches who are. I think they get their power from earth energy, from walking around outside, from being around animals or the woods and things like that. They're usually like spellcasters, the ones who are making teas and candles and crafty stuff for witches. Um, but the purple witches always have a connection to the other side. So it's either
Yeah.
gods and goddesses or deities
That's why I
or
always said, when people ask me the type of witch I am, I go back to the true definition of a gray witch or a hedge witch, which people don't understand. Like, a hedge witch isn't a witch that's out picking flowers or not. A hedge witch is literally a witch that travels the hedge between this world and the other side.
okay, I
And
know.
yeah, and that's the old world definition of a hedge witch, and that's how I've always looked at myself, because I do feel I have one foot in this world and one foot in the spirit world, because I am so in tune. Like, as an indigenous person, I'm a storyteller. And that's one of the reasons I started this podcast, because to me, I feel everybody has a story and everybody's stories should be shared. And as
Living
indigenous
and
people,
living
that's what
and
we
dead.
do.
Living and dead.
Yeah. Oh
Right.
yeah, definitely. Because when I investigate as a paranormal investigator, my feelings are my job is to share the stories of the people that are there.
Right.
Like, and I experience their lives and their deaths the same way they did. Like, I have been in so many locations, the Jenny Wade House in Gettysburg. I literally felt myself being shot. And I was literally not realizing I was standing in what was the kitchen until this, like, I started screaming that something was burning in my shoulder blade, and someone opened the door, like moved the door, and theirs was the bullet hole.
Wow.
And I was literally lined right up with it, and I was like, "Oh, that makes sense." It didn't even look like a kitchen, I woulda never thought it was a kitchen, but I was literally standing by this thing. I'm like, "Man, I wonder where the kitchen was and where she actually was shot," and it was like 2 seconds later, bam.
Right.
And I've had that experience. I know what it feels like to die from dysentery. I know, like, at West Virginia Penitentiary, I had that whole experience where I felt Red, who was one of the prisoners there who was killed viciously, by another prisoner. I felt all of that. Like, literally, as I walked by his cell, I collapsed.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, it's definitely that's how I experience the world, is not only through the living people around me, but through the people who passed on, who I feel want their stories told.
Right. Well, it's awesome that you are able to help them or try to help them in whatever way you are. I've met people who I met one gal, and I told her, I see you're a purple lighter, so obviously when you talk to dead people, she said, yeah, I see dead people all the time. She worked in a courthouse, and she's like, yeah, sometimes I don't know if they're real people walking in or if it's a dead person walking in, and I'm like, well, have you ever asked them if they need help? She's like, no, why did I do that? I'm like, wait, what? Like, it didn't occur to her to ever ask them if they wanted help or if they needed help or if there was anything she could do to help them. She was just like, yeah, I don't know. I see them and that's it. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. So I don't know.
And
People
I
are
just
strange.
think that's because so many people aren't raised or learn,
Right. Well,
like those of us that have reached out to learn.
right. Or she could be afraid of it, or she could just be not a nice person, like she just cares about herself. I mean, who knows? There could be a thousand different reasons. But um, it's crazy that that people think that they're crazy when they're literally using witch powers that are easily defined. It's like it's so that's I guess what I'm trying to help with to to try to reconcile or try to fix with today's society. I guess I'm doing witch powers. One gal said that she thinks that I'm here to activate witches and get them using their gifts to
That's
progress.
what it sounds like to me. It honestly sounds like that's your calling. Your calling is to get these people to like, "Hey, wake up, man. You've got these gifts and you're not using them." And spirit is saying, "Hey, you need to start using them."
Yeah. So you know, the universe keeps sending me people, left and right. Um, I meet them on Facebook mostly. Sometimes I meet them in real life, but I've done like 125 witch power readings so far, and nobody's ever said I don't have any of those gifts or whatever. Everybody's got usually between like 8 and 13. I think is probably the average number
Wow.
of actual witch powers. I mean, there's 62 on this board. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah, I can. Yeah, I can't read them, but I can see them.
Right. So I mean, there's 62 uh, different witch powers that are on that board, and this pendulum I have here, his
Oh, that's
name
a
is
pretty one.
his name is Fox. He spelled out his name when I asked him if he had a name. He said yes, and he spelled out the word Fox. So that's his name. He's like the spirit that is my teacher. He helps people learn about themselves. He helps people learn about um, anything they want to learn about. So he's kind of my my teacher pendulum. And then this one is Jerry, and she is like my mom. I think she's like the pendulum that I ask all my questions for. Now, the first 20 witch power readings I did, I was doing with Jerry, and I got the feeling that she didn't want to do them all the time. Like she was answering the questions because I was asking, but she wasn't really into it. And then I went into one of the witch shops, and I that's another thing. When I go into a witch shop that sells pendulums, I
Mhm.
always walk up to the pendulum rack, and usually one or two of them will kind of shout out to me or something. Like I hear them in my head, say, "Hey, look at me!" And then if I pick it up and I ask it if it wants to come home with me, sometimes it says yes, sometimes it says no. But when they say yes, I buy them and then I bring them home, and they will literally spell out a witch's name on my spelling board. And then, of course, within a week or 2 months or whatever, I end up doing a witch power reading for that witch, and they'll always have dowsing pendulum as one of their gifts. And then I'm like, oh, by the way, this pendulum spelled out your name, and I'll pull it out, and it'll spell out the name again. And then I've handed a pendulum to a witch who can use a pendulum. And I don't pick the witch's name. I just buy the pendulum and it spells the witch's name itself. And I've handed out maybe 25 or 30 pendulums that way. Literally just the way I described it. Like it's crazy. But I don't know.
But it's interesting at the same time because I don't think people understand, the powers of our guides and ancestors and people on the other side, that they're not just, these sentient beings that aren't doing anything. They're just, hanging around waiting for us to talk to them. I mean, I honestly, like, I can understand what you're saying because, like, I communicate with my guides and my ancestors all the time because it's, what I was always taught to do.
Right.
And, like, I know this because I had a friend who was psychic, before, I really, really embraced my gifts, and he did a reading for me, and he started, like, saying, "Oh my goodness," and I'm like, "What?" He said, Do you have Irish and you are Scottish?" And I said, "Well, my grandparents are full-blooded Scotch Irish. My grandmother's Scottish and my grandfather's Irish, and they came here from Ireland. Like, literally, my dad was born on the way over." And they're like, "Well, you're Irish, and those ancestors are shouting. Like, they're shouting over each other." And he said, "All I hear is the brogue." And I'm like, "Well, it's probably because I hadn't been connected to them for most of my life. And now
Or
they
you
want
thought
me to
you were
know
crazy.
we're here."
Right. Or you thought you were crazy for hearing them in your head
Right.
your whole life.
Oh, definitely. Cause I mean, I was taught you say your prayers, and I always tell people like my major experiences, when I was a kid with like I knew when my grandparents died and stuff like that, it came through my radio.
Like their
The
voice.
voices would come through my radio, like saying, your grandmother just passed away or your grandfather just passed away. And the people would think I was crazy because,
Right.
well, where did you hear that? In my radio? Like I was at a school dance and I literally heard them say, so and so was just killed. And it was a friend of mine. And I'm like, oh, that's bullshit. And here we got, the message later that night that he had been killed in a car accident.
Well, you were hearing it through the radio, or you think you were hearing it through the radio, but you were hearing it in your head. You know
It
what I mean?
sounded to me like it was coming through the radio.
Right.
I could have been hearing it in my head because when my grandmother in particular passed away, my best friend was there with me. She didn't hear it.
Mm,
So maybe it was in my head and just my young mind was assessing it to the radio because the
right.
radio happened to be on.
That's what I think. I think obviously it wasn't coming through the radio as like static or like a spirit box or
Right.
whatever. I mean, it wasn't that kind of interaction with the spirit. So I'm guessing your brain interpreted it the only way you could, which was, well, I had to have heard that through that speaker because nobody hears stuff in your head, right?
Oh yeah,
So
100%. And
yeah.
but when you say that, it makes a lot more sense. It was how my brain interpreted it because that's what I tell people all the time. I found out my psychic gifts came through a radio, and then the people look at me like I'm weird. But now I understand. No, it wasn't the radio. It was always there. It was just that I associated it as being the radio.
Because how else do you hear things? Like if you hear music from the radio, it's in your head. Like it just appears
Right.
in your ear. So yeah, your brain is going to interpret. Well, I heard somebody say my grandpa died or whatever, and so I guess I heard it through the radio. But
Yep.
and
Yeah. And,
now,
and yep. But now, what would you say, like with the witches readings that you've done? What seems to be the most common
mm.
witch's power or witch's gift that you see coming through?
Well, every witch has a connection to source. I guess is what it's called, or what
Mhm.
most people kind of call it, and that's um, their way of divination. So whether they're they can read tarot, and that's how they get their connection to their guides, or there's runes. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, there's 62 different gifts. So, um, but every witch has that ability. So, like if you have dowsing pendulum, you always have dowsing rods too. I guess they're kind of interchangeable powers. I've never used dowsing rods before, but obviously I can use pendulums.
We use them a lot in the paranormal world.
Yeah, yeah, the rods, right? Because you want
Yep.
yes or no questions answered, and they're super easy for yes or no, and they're easy for a spirit to manipulate from the other side.
And they
Um,
also can guide you to places. Like I've had dowsing rods that have guided us to specific areas in a home.
oh, like to find something or
Yeah, or
evidence.
not even that, like where the activity is or yeah, what spirit is in what location of the house or but we've also used them to locate lost objects.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the other thing with the printing boards off the internet. You can literally ask. You can make a chart for anything you want, and then your pendulum can tell you anything you want. Like there's so many that I've got like 40 that we printed out and laminated because those are the ones that we use at like festivals and things. But yeah, I mean, you can ask a pendulum any question you want, and then you can um, also make a board have whatever questions you want. So like there's
Oh
the
yeah,
cryptic.
I do know that from experience. I remember like making like makeshift little Ouija boards and whatnot when we would be at locations because every place freaks out. No spirit boards, no Ouija boards. I'm like, what? But
Yeah,
it's again the bad rap that those things get from media.
well, yeah, and who knows if a Ouija board is really real? I've never experienced one before, and honestly, the pendulums I had seen maybe 4 or 5 women use a pendulum before. My girlfriend used hers for the first time around me a few years ago, and all they ever asked was yes or no questions. You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, that's kind
And
of
that's because
cool.
that's what we're taught. Like, I
Right.
never realized that there was this whole other world, which I need to look into because, like, pendulum, magic is some of my favorite. I do, I have a pendulum board that I take to festivals with me, but again, it's a yes, no, maybe. I even have a automatic pendulum.
What's
It's
that?
like it's a box. It's like it sits on a platform and it has a curve on it, and then it has yes, no, maybe, restate, and it's led by it has magnets underneath. But what
Mm.
you do is you hit it and ask questions, and it'll go to a yes, no, maybe, rephrase. And it's actually I got it from someone off of TikTok. They made one for me and sent it to me to try, and I use it every once in a while, and I my daughter gets so mad at it because it constantly asks her to rephrase because for whatever reason she doesn't like to be, exact with her questions. She likes to try to, like, shimmy around what she's actually asking. And
Right,
it holds her to it. Like, it'll say, "Ask again," that you need to ask more clearer, and so she'll ask more clearer and she'll get an answer. And at
right,
first I wasn't bought into it because I'm like, there's magnets. It'll come up all the time. But then when I actually started asking questions and the answers would change to what I asked it questions that I knew the answers to. And when
hmm
it gave me the right answers, and when I asked a different question, and it gave me, the fact that the answer that I was thinking of was the false answer,
right,
I knew it wasn't playing off me or playing off the magnets. It was actually working.
right. You try to trick it sometimes and ask it questions that you know. And yeah, I mean, I did all that too when I first started using the pendulum, and it's there's someone else controlling the pendulum, and it's not me. I mean, that's the only way
Right.
I know how to describe it. And then, like I said, all my pendulums then spell out the name that they want to be called. So we got Fox and Jerry, and then I just had this this pendulum come into my life about I don't know, a couple months ago. Um, and she says she's here to help me help animals. So I don't know in what capacity, but we'll see. I've
Maybe
experimented with
she
her.
wants you to start reading animals.
Well, I'm not sure if it's like doing breeding animals themselves or maybe locating lost animals in the woods. I mean, you could.
Oh, that could be a possibility too. Like, I always look at it, I do animal Reiki.
Mm,
Because when I originally learned Reiki, I learned it for my two kids that were autistic. And then I never really, ventured out past a couple friends, and then I had a dog that was always hyper anxious. And
mm,
I just put my hands on her and, start sending Reiki as she just became so calm.
mm.
Now, I currently have a crazy corgi, and no matter what the amount of Reiki I give her, she just wants more and more and more, and she doesn't calm. So,
But well, corgis rarely do, so
well,
that's not a
and she's
fun
also
sight.
mixed with border collie, so that
Oh,
makes it
wow.
even worse. She's got double
Extra
work
smart
dog
too.
energy.
Yeah, and she's extra smart too.
Yeah. Oh, very smart, very intelligent. Because you could look at her and tell her what to do, and she immediately does it, except to go to the bathroom outside. She refuses to. She only goes in one spot on a pad.
Mm,
So, yeah, that's the only thing we can't get her to do is go to the bathroom outside. She has wants nothing to do with it. So, I'm like, if that's all she does
right.
wrong,
If that's the worst thing, and it's totally manageable with a pee pad, then
yep.
more power to
Because
her.
she will wake us up at night to let her out of the bedroom to go downstairs and use a pee pad. So it's
Right,
not, and that's her spot. But it's insane. But yeah, I mean, I can always see that because I do see the benefits of this, the holistic metaphysical when it comes to our animals.
right. Yeah, I mean, I haven't really explored too much what I can do with that pendulum Madison, but um, we'll see where it goes. I mean, I've been doing a lot of witch power readings lately, and other readings. So it's crazy, but not crazy. I keep saying that over and over.
But to people, I think outside of our world, um, it may seem crazy to them because they see us like playing with pendulums or cards, but they don't understand. Like, I took a tarot course years ago, and it's the same. Every course you take basically tells you the same things, and I always felt that I wasn't getting what I was supposed to from
Hmm.
tarot readings.
Well, maybe
And
you're
then
not a tarot reader.
well, here's the funny part of it is that I threw the books away. I threw the
Mm,
classes away, and I just started throwing the cards and listening to them speak to me.
okay, yeah.
So I would
Well,
literally like, I stopped reading tarot at events because I would have people who knew tarot say, "Well, that's not what that card means." And I'm like, "Oh,
okay,
here we," so I started reading oracle because nobody knows what those cards mean. They don't have a universal meaning. And
right.
I still get the same readings for them if I do tarot or oracle. And the cards do. They speak to me in a way that you're not able to learn
Hmm.
from a class in tarot or the books or anything like that. Like there's no memorization. I just look at the card and let it tell me the story.
Right.
And now I just
Well,
did get a new set of tarot because for some reason I was led that I needed to start reading tarot again.
well, then I'm sure you're a tarot reader. But
Yeah,
um,
and I do a lot of tarot reading, like, well, mostly, like I said, oracle. But, it's that, I did a mediumship reading for someone who literally left a festival, drove a half hour home, made her husband and daughter get in the car, come back, and paid for them both to have mediumship readings with me to see what I got from them. And then they all kind of started bawling their eyes out because 2 months prior, their son had died from
mm,
cancer. And everything that I was saying was, legitimately from him. Like they could verify those were things that he had said to them.
well, if he had stopped by that festival and sent them to you so that he could get the message to them, so
Yeah.
uh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's
Well,
and now do you do a lot of festivals? Because now I know where you are, you have an amazing, place not too far from you called Colonsile, which is
mm,
like the Stonehenge of Pennsylvania, they call it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
go up there I try to get up there once a year. It is, I always call it one of my happy places. I
mm.
like to sit in the little chapel that they have there. Now, do you do a lot of events up in that area?
Uh, with my Pocono Runawitch, we've only done a couple private events. We haven't really done any festivals or any places like that. Um, but my girlfriend, when she uses her pendulum, she talks to dead people on it. So I'm trying to get her doing more readings for people because I think that that's what she's supposed to do on this planet is connect people with their past loved ones. And to have my grandma spell out sentences to me on a spelling board, it's pretty crazy. And she's connected me with all my past loved ones, my mom, my grandma, my daughter who died during delivery, was our
Wow.
first. She was like the second spirit that came through when she started doing readings for me. And even my dad, who left me and my mom when I was two, he's since passed, and he came through on her pendulum. And like the first thing he spelled out to me was "I'm sorry," and I was like, "Holy shit, so am I." But
I
um,
get a lot of that even, when I do mediumship sessions, a lot of times I get the I didn't know what I was saying. I'm
mm,
sorry I acted that way. And I'm always shocked because like I feel bad because of being empathetic, and I see these people cry and I'm like, I don't want to do readings anymore.
well, it's got to be tough, but that's what you're supposed to do on this planet. I mean, that's your superpower. That's your witch power.
And for me, I've always felt lost because I always feel like I don't know where I fit in.
Mm,
'Cause I have a mishmash of things that I do. I do a lot with divination because of my work in the paranormal.
right.
But then when I'm home, nothing makes me happier than like infusing, magic, if you want to call it, into food and elixirs. And, I make a lot of my husband calls them my potions and salves and, traditional healing, which comes from my mom's family that are native,
Right.
elderberry syrup and things like that are things. So I always like felt like this person that was out of place because I'm like, "Oh, I don't know where," and that's why I think it's important to be able to know there's something like this out there because it could help someone to literally say, "Hey, this is your niche and this is what you should be focused on. Because I'm always wondering, like, I'm a witch of all trades. I don't know what I should be focusing on. I just focus on what comes to me and what feels right.
Right. Well, and that's I think why the witch power readings that I've been doing are so important for people who are um, even professional witches. I mean, I do these for professional witches all the time. And actually, the person who's had the most witch powers out of the witch power readings I've done is a professional yogi who was like a 40-year-old professional yogi. He had 23 of these witch powers, and I was like, that's a lot of. And most people have between 8 and 13, but this guy had 10 times, or 10 more than that. So I mean, it was. But I think that that's because he has been using the gifts that he got at birth his whole adult life. Like he somehow gravitated towards all those gifts, and so I think the universe was like, well, he mastered those 12. Let's throw another 10 at him and see how he does with them or whatever. So you know,
That kind of makes sense because, like, I know yogis are such a different breed.
hmm
Like, I've always been fascinated. Like, I got to experience a lot with different yogis as I was going through my Reiki trainings. And, I have a friend who has a yoga studio, and, she does so much. Like, the last time I was out there, she built this big copper pyramid that's her clients sit in, and she does all this. Like, I had a session done, and usually I don't get crap from any of that stuff. Like, yeah, sometimes with Reiki, I can get emotional and feel things and hear things, but other times I just don't experience anything huge. But when I went into that copper pyramid, man, and she started doing all this sound stuff, wham! Like, I came out of there bawling like a baby.
hmm,
And I don't know why, but
right,
I was bawling. And, so, like, yeah, they like I just see them, like, being able to harness so many gifts into them because of that ability.
right, yeah. So I don't know really anything about anything. I mean, I've never read a book. I've never read a book on pendulums. I started reading one, and I started reading a book about psychic witches, and the first 4 pages, the guy was saying anybody has the ability to be a psychic, and I'm like, well, no, they don't. I mean, I can literally see which people can be psychic. So I mean, it was basically for commercial. He was writing a book about witches for everybody to read it, and you know, that's not how I learned anyway. I was never really good at school. I was good at hands-on part of school, but not the books part of
And
school.
see, I's the opposite. I devour everything, like books. Like, I tell people all the time, I read the entire Harry Potter series in less than a week. Every book.
Wow.
Yeah, and I do. I devour written material, and I don't always retain it, but I retain what I'm supposed to.
Right.
And
You're.
I think, like, now I go crazy because there's so many things that aren't in print. They want you to go online and download. And I'm like, no, 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 I don't want to do that. I want a book in my hands. I want to smell it. I want to feel it. And, so I think that's a struggle that a lot of us do have. We want to get back to the old way of learning. And, for a lot of witches, it's a grimoire or a book of shadows. And so many, like, that's one of the books I wrote, was like a big beginner's grimoire, because so many of them did not know where to start,
hmm
because it's
Yeah.
not handed down from generation to generation anymore. Like, I had things from my grandfather that would be considered a grimoire. It wasn't what he called it, but as I looked through it and was learning things, I'm like, oh, he
hmm
was a little bit more witchy than he ever admitted to anybody.
Right. Well, I mean, that's why I think this wish power reading is so important for people because it gives them um, gifts that they can put all their energy and attention into learning about because that's the ones that Fox says you have. And one lady asked me on a Facebook post one time, how accurate is he? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me ask him. So I got him out, and man, there's numbers on the board here. I said, can you see the numbers? And he said, yes. I said, can you tell me how accurate you are at telling witch power readings? And he said, yes. And he swung to 8 and 9. So I said, are you 89% accurate? And he said, yes. And I'm like, okay, that's good enough for
Hey,
me.
that's probably better than me.
Right? So 89% accuracy, he can tell a witch, which powers they have access to, and from there it's up to them. Of the 125 people that I've done a witch power reading for, um, I would imagine probably 75% of them take that information and try to learn about those gifts. Maybe 10 or 15% just say whatever, thanks
I'm
for the
just gonna
information.
live my life.
Exactly. And, I can't make them learn about the stuff, but I can give them keys to unlock their potential if they want to. And that's really what I do. I mean, that's, that's, I think, the best way to describe what I do. I'm not giving anybody any information that they shouldn't have. I'm not giving anybody information that is going to be harmful to them. I mean, it's more dangerous to walk around with all these loaded weapons of powers and not even know how to use them or
I
what
will
they are.
I will I will admit to that because for the longest time I would go places and like people would laugh, but I literally used to explode light bulbs.
Oh, my girlfriend blows out her headlight on her car at least
Yep.
once every 2 months. I mean, we're replacing headlights. So
Yeah,
yeah,
when I was
there's a lot.
first really coming in tune, especially as things started growing, we were at a hotel in North Carolina for an event, and I'm in the bathroom, and this was around the time they started making everything automatic. And all I was trying to do was wash my hands, and every sink in the bathroom started running. All the paper towel things were shooting out at me, and all the toilets were flashing. And I remember one of my mentors at the time came in the bathroom, started laughing her head off, and started singing to me, "Welcome to my world. It's so nice you could stay." Because I was in tears. Nothing would turn off. And I'm like, "What do I do?" And she's like, "Just walk away. And as soon as you leave, it will stop."
Well, that could have also been spirits messing with you too. So it could have been your
Well,
electric
and that's the thing.
energy.
My mentor not only is, a very gifted, person in the psychic and mediumistic community, she was also a paranormal investigator.
Hmm.
So, and that's why I like had that connection with her because we both had that love of each thing together. And so, yeah, but that was always like the thing is when all these things, and I still have that problem to this day. Like, I'll go to turn on a sink and it won't turn on.
Right.
But then my kids will come over and boom, it starts working. Or,
Right.
I go to get the paper towels and the whole roll shoots out at me. So, yeah, it's like, it's when I know I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing that kind of hits me.
Oh,
And
so you think it's like a
I think it's either my energy field or something in the energy, like energy around me that's telling me, hey, you have all this pent up crap. You need to let it go or, start using it.
or pay attention to whatever or whatever. Yeah, they're trying to get a message to you that you're not listening to in your head.
Yeah.
Most
Oh,
of
and
the
that's
time.
always the case because I argue with my messages all the time. Like for years, I was being told to do something and nah, 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 nah. And then I ended up getting deathly sick because I was putting it off, putting it off, putting it off.
Right. Would
So
it
now
if
I
you
listen.
just right if you just listened from the beginning, it would have been fine.
And I also try to rewrite what they're telling me.
Right.
They may tell me to do one thing and I'll be like, "But this is really what you want me to do, right?" And then that usually blows up in my face too. So,
Well, if you get a spelling board for your pendulum,
yeah, I
they
am I am
spell
going to
out.
look into that. I am definitely going to look into that. I was actually laughing because my pendulum is literally on the floor here next to me and I don't know where that came from.
What it just popped out of nowhere.
Yeah, like seriously,
Well,
here it is right on the floor.
that's how Jerry came to me. I was at a
Well, this
table.
is the one. It's usually in the box with my pendulum board. This is the one that I use for readings at festivals because it's the one that I'm most connected to. So I don't know how it ended up in the floor in my office, but it must have wanted some attention tonight.
Absolutely.
So,
And
so
and I think somebody probably wants to talk to you on that pendulum.
well,
So
yeah, that'll probably be like, like once I worked all day today, so I definitely think when I have downtime on Wednesday, I'll be bringing boards in, and I'm even probably gonna search for some other boards now that I know there's so many out there.
yeah, I mean the website. I think it's kind of dim. Oh, okay. It's subtil.net. So if you go to subtil.net and start searching dowsing boards until you
Yeah.
find one or 20 that look interesting to you. Um, I like there's a rainbow shaped alphabet one, and I think that's better for beginners because it's kind of hard for the pendulum to push all the way out to the edge to get to the letters on mine. Um, but the rainbow shaped one, it's right here. So A is here and Z is here, and there's no confusion because it's 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 nothing's across from each other. Because that's the other thing with the spelling boards like this. E is right across from V and U and T, so you don't know if
It
it's
takes a
gonna.
little bit longer to perfect the reading style, I guess you could say, with them.
Definitely. So like when I hand a witch a pendulum that spelled out her name or his name, um, I always tell them just go print out a rainbow one. It's free. It's literally free, so you don't have to spend money on Amazon like I did with this black one. But print out the rainbow shaped alphabet, and if you type in rainbow shaped alphabet dowsing board, it'll come up with four or five of them, and you can print it out and start talking to whatever the spirit is, whoever the spirit is.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm definitely gonna try that because now I'm very interested in trying it, but that's about all the time I have today, but I may actually reach out to you the next time I do a witches roundtable to just have you come along because I try to do one every month or every 2 months. Just because I think it's important, especially in the world we currently live in, to have these conversations so other witches know where they can turn and things they could do to help themselves. So, guys, I will have all of his information as always linked on the YouTube page and the podcast description. So if you need to get one of these witches readings, you know who to reach out to. And then that way you can also keep track of him to see if maybe he's going to be somewhere near you or have people somewhere near you. And then that way, you could see where that goes. But Matt, I appreciate you so much for coming on today. I had so much fun discussing this, and I even learned a new thing or two. So it's pretty awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Holly. I had a lot of fun.
All right. Well, I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll be here.
From our friends at Got Knockers, Strange Knocks Magazine. Strange Knocks Magazine is your ultimate companion for exploring the enigmatic corners of our world. Delve into the shadows with us as we uncover the mysteries surrounding cryptids like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, and examine the tantalizing possibility of extraterrestrial life visiting Earth. Our pages are filled with compelling true crime stories that defy conventional explanation, alongside mind bending conspiracy theories that challenge the status quo. Whether you're a seasoned skeptic or a curious believer, Strange Knocks Magazine invites you to expand your horizons and entertain the unexplained. With captivating articles, make sure and check out our merch store at Bonfire. We are a Bonfire verified creator. Link will be in the description.